Good morning, boys and girls, and welcome to another episode of Adventures of the Broke and Retired. I'm very happy to see and very glad to see that you were able to make it. While we are here, please don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Those are three things that are quick, easy, and free for you to do, and they do a lot of good for this channel. That's what being on YouTube is all about. Like, subscribe, and share. I'm your old buddy Don. I'm here with my reckless remote friend Elmer, who sometimes is dependable, sometimes is dependable, and sometimes is despicable. We're here to provide you again today with another video, which will hopefully make you think about things. Hopefully, maybe you'll learn something. Maybe you'll find out something that you didn't even know you didn't know. That's kind of the point of it. Of course, I need to add in here that I don't present this video as historical fact, but as an overview of a subject that I find interesting, that I hope you will find interesting as well. I don't present myself as an expert. In fact, I don't think I'm an expert on anything. I don't think I'm an expert on anything at all. At least nothing that I'm aware of. I'm just a guy who talks to a microphone and has a friend whose name is Elmer. I'm going to try to keep my screen on for that side light this time. So, as I spend quite a bit of time doing, I should probably spend some time doing some other things, but I spend a lot of time oh wait, just 1 minute. Happy holidays. You gotta get a little drink once in a while. You get a little dry throat there. Anyway, quite often I will sit around just kind of thinking about things, just kind of wondering. It's like I sit in front of the screen and kind of daze out. My mind kind of romps around a grassy meadow, and every once in a while bumps into a tree stump of some sort of thought. And I was thinking the other day about band names. I played for a long time. The name of the band sets the tone for pretty much everything it does. It lets the public know what you do. If the band members aren't comfortable with the name, they're not going to want to be part of that band. Like when Vern wanted to name Vern. You out there, Vern? When Vern wanted to name the band the Blue Vein Throbbers, and you can't call a band Free Beer because obviously unless the band plans on buying the beer, because obviously the bar's not going to want that on their sign. The name of the band is the band's public image. Example. If you name the band Nicky Knife and the Switchblades, people are not going to anticipate unplugged versions of John Denver's music being played, are they? Same thing goes around if you name the band Island Breeze. They're not going to be expecting, a whole bunch of Ozzy Osbourne or Black Sabbath. And Ozzy Osbourne is the same thing. But they're not going to be expecting a bunch of Black Sabbath being played either. They're going to expect something lighter, something smoother, like maybe Island Breeze if you're going to play Spyro Gyra's music. Now, I'm going to put the name Spyro Gyra down here, because as I think about I like Spyro Gyra's music. I would classify it's kind of in a genre its own, and I would classify it as being pleasant and comfortable. I think would be the way to put Spyro Gyra's music. Pleasant and comfortable, I think, covers it fairly well. When I played a lot, I used to, sometimes I would sit around at work. I would sit around and come up with band names, Yeah, I had a friend of mine. I had a friend of mine. I'm not gonna say what his name is. I haven't seen him in years now. I had a friend of mine who who came up with a good band name, but he also did something else. And I never knew this about the guy. The whole time I played music with the guy, I never knew that he was a chopper pilot, a medevac chopper pilot during the Vietnam War. He never discussed it, never brought it up. I never knew he knew how to fly a helicopter. Of course, how often does the subject of flying helicopters come up in regular conversation? But he was actually he had multiple Purple Hearts for flying wounded soldiers out, which the one time I did hear him tell a story, geez, that took a lot of courage, man. But anyway, he always wanted to name the band Gypsy Picnic. I thought Gypsy Picnic was okay. You know, everybody has a name that they want to name a band. Everybody who plays music has that in their mind. And their name is always better than whatever name you come up with. And a good example of this is that while Gypsy Picnic I thought was a pretty good name for a band, my name was better. I wanted to name the band Fade to Gray. I'll put that down here. In fact, I'm going to put I can't see you. I'm going to put Gypsy Picnic and Fade to Gray, because Fade to Gray could be spelled a bunch of different ways. But anyway, I always thought Fade to Gray was a good name for a band because the age we were, that's what we were doing. I wasn't completely gray like I am now at the time. And I actually had hair. But I always thought Fade to Gray was good. He thought Gypsy Picnic was good. And Gypsy Picnic was good, but it wasn't as good as mine. One of the names for a band that has stuck in my mind for a while was Spandau Ballet. Spandau Ballet is a band that was, I think they were from Germany. I think they were officially Spandau Ballet in 1979. They were originally from Germany. They had gone through a whole bunch of what I'm going to refer to as pretty lame band names, which off the top of my head I can only recall a couple now: The Cut, The Makers. But they had gone through some names and they didn't have anything that they really were satisfied with. And then this guy that they knew, Robert Elms, I believe was his name. This guy they named Robert Elms went on a weekend trip to Berlin, and he saw some graffiti while he was in Berlin, and he came back and told the guys in the band about it, and they decided to adopt that as their name. The graffiti that he saw said Rudolph Hess all alone dancing the Spandau Ballet. Now, they thought Spandau Ballet was a great name for a band, and to be honest with you, I thought it was too. I thought Spandau Ballet was a great name until I found out, I did a little bit of digging around, found out what Spandau Ballet meant. It's a very meaningful phrase. It's a very meaningful phrase that's actually very dark as well. I'm going to break it down a little bit for you, and we'll talk about what it means. Spandau Ballet, that'll be down here too. Ballet, B-A-L, well, it's written right there, so everybody knows what ballet. I would define ballet as a certain type of dance, but I had no idea what a Spandau was. So I decided I would look up to see what a Spandau was. And I'm thinking to myself, Spandau may very well have something to do with spandex. I don't know. Just a minute. Anyway, maybe it had to do with spandex. I don't know. So I decided to look it up. And lo and behold, what do I find out? Spandau is not a thing. Spandau is a place. Spandau is a borough. It's a little bit west of Berlin. It's considered a borough of Berlin. It's been around for a long time. It's got a rich history, and that rich history includes the manufacture of small arms, actually machine guns, and we'll call hand weapons, rifles and hand things like that. In 1850, that started in 1850. There was a company called the Royal Prussian Rifle Factory that was in Potsdam, Germany. In 1850, they moved that factory from Potsdam to Spandau. So they started producing government issue small arms until the demilitarization. After World War I, the Treaty of Versailles required a complete disarming of Germany. So the production then stopped. And they went on to do some other things. It's also known Spandau is also known for the Spandau Citadel. Now, the Citadel was built, it took from 1559 up until 1594 to build the Citadel. It was used for a whole bunch of military reasons in the meantime, but in 1935, the Spandau Citadel became the German Army's gas protection laboratory, where they worked with chemicals. They had 300 people working in the Citadel. That's what I said, right? The Spandau Citadel. They had over 300 people working in the Citadel, working on what they called protective chemical weapons and on munitions production. And they did chemical weapons testing on humans there, which I think is a bit dark. Anyway, the munitions were developed. They weren't manufactured there, but they were developed there. Number 3 in the famous for Spandau, or Spandau's fame, was the infamous Spandau prison. That prison has a pretty dark history. I don't want to get in, when you start talking about Germany in 1935, there's not a lot. You got to be really careful about what you say on YouTube, for obvious reasons. I think when I say 1935 Germany, everyone understands what was going on there. In 1935, they used the Spandau prison as a prison camp during the building of a bunch of other prison camps. And at first they held people at the Citadel prison, they held them for their own protection, which was propaganda. That was a lie, obviously. And the prison earned itself a horrid reputation. I can't say much more than that because I'm afraid that YouTube is going to kick me out if I get into it too much. If you have interest in that, I would very highly recommend, and I'll put the name right here. I would very highly recommend that you research the Spandau prison just for your own personal knowledge, just for your own education. The most famous prisoner, every time you have a prison, you always talk about the prisoners the prison's most famous prisoner. In this particular case, the most famous prisoner at the Spandau prison, was Rudolf Hess. I think we're probably all familiar with who Rudolf Hess was. This is a subject that I've got to be careful with because I don't even know if I'm allowed to say the guy's name on YouTube. But Rudolf Hess was found guilty at the Nuremberg trials in 1946 and 47, I believe. He was held captive in the Spandau prison starting in July of 1947. And he stayed at the prison until his, we'll call it, I hope I can get away with saying this. He stayed at the prison as a prisoner until his self-induced passing in 1987. So he was there at that prison for 40 years before he decided to end his stay. Believe it or not, now this prison, the Spandau prison, was built to hold about 600 prisoners. From 1966 until 1987, which is 21 years, he was the only prisoner the facility held. That's a lonely existence. Not that I feel sorry for the guy, because I don't. That's a lonely existence. But that's what happens when you act that way. Anyway, 1987, he made the choice to not continue on, shall we say. Now, that area, that borough, Spandau, is where Spandau Ballet got its name. So now we talked about ballet being a dance. We talked about Spandau. Now that we know what Spandau was, we can get into what the term Spandau Ballet refers to. This is a bit dark. I have to tiptoe around this very carefully because YouTube may not appreciate, may not allow some of the things that I say, so I'm going to be very careful. In Spandau, you had the manufacture of arms. In Spandau, you had a chemical facility that tested on humans. In Spandau, you had an absolutely brutal prison up until it was converted to hold those found guilty at the Nuremberg trial. The ballet part of Spandau, when the human when the human body goes through we'll call it its last moments on earth, and it's its last moments on earth due to outside forces. May those outside forces be attack with weapons, chemicals, chemical testing, chemical experiments, I should say, mistreatment in prison, or by personal choice, the way Mr. Hess decided to get out of the prison. When the human body goes through its last moments on earth, because of attack or chemicals or even self-inflicted whatever. It goes through a series of involuntary motions, flopping around like a fish, getting real jerky. It's a rude way to put it, but I don't know of any other way to describe it. When it goes through those motions, that's what is referred to as the Spandau Ballet. As a person's body is going through those moments, it's described as doing the Spandau Ballet. Now I guess you know something that you didn't know you didn't know. And if you did know, you probably didn't want to hear again. I find this a very disturbing subject. But it is what it is, and I just thought that it was very interesting that a boy band from the 70s, well, from the 80s, that's when they got famous, was in the 80s. A boy band from the 80s who had the name Spandau Ballet that I always thought was really cool, invented band name. I didn't realize that it had that meaning. I didn't realize that it had an actual meaning. So, now you know.